Welcome back. Guys, my guest this week, she is returning, good friend of mine. She's a marriage and family therapist, FHM cover model. You've seen her on here several times. I trigger her audience. She triggers mine. So we're really happy to have her back. It is Jamie Lynn. How you doing, Jamie?
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me back. We're still friends, right?
Yeah, we are still friends. So everyone thought we weren't friends. Like, I was getting all these messages. And I will tell you what's going on. For a while, Jamie would react to something we said on Access Vegas, and then we'd react back, and then she would react, and then we'd react back.
Yeah, we had a friendly little rivalry going on.
And for those of you who didn't know, while we were doing that and filming Access Vegas, she would stop by the studio at Access Vegas. It was very much Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage being best friends off camera. You know what I'm saying?
I remember one time you guys were filming, and I had just gotten done filming an episode of Pink Pill. Yeah. And I popped in to say hi, and you guys were like, "Come join us." And I was like, "No." And then I booked it. But yeah, everybody thought we hated each other for a while.
We always want you to come on the show.
Yeah, I know. I get asked all the time.
I will literally step down from my chair and let you sit and host a show.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll have you and Rolo sit on one end, and I'll just dictate everything.
That'd be incredible. You guys would be excited at that. We'll do Access Vegas. Her and her friend will sit here. Okay. And then we'll I don't know, Anna Nichols or Bex or someone like that will sit here. And then Nicolette Shea and Jamie Lynn. And then we'll sit at the end here. And then just it'll be terrific. Anyway, so going back to what you said before, the thing you specialize in, and it's been more of a buzzword even than the first time we did our podcast, the first time we did one. And it's the concept of narcissism. The difference between narcissism and NPD, that's a discussion that people have frequently. And then the other one is, did you date a guy who just got tired of you? Or did you date a guy who was or did you date a guy who's just a little bit selfish? Or did you date a narcissist? Yep. And one of the funny things I do is I ask ladies frequently on the show, and obviously this is not a perfect sample size, but I was like, have you guys ever dated a narcissist? I think we ask every show. And all the girls raise their hand, and I'm like, well, I believe 4 to 6% of the human population are narcissists, and you've all dated a narcissist. Does that make sense to you mathematically? Or I guess maybe my first question is, how do you know the difference when you're dealing with a girl who doesn't really have strong boundaries, and she's dealing with a man who does have boundaries, so she calls him a narcissist? I will tell you personally, that's happened to me a few times. Or dealing with a person who's an actual narcissist.
Well, that's a loaded question. And I actually I think, look, there's 3 kind of categories it could fall into. It could be he's just not that into you. Because look, let's get the correct framework here. I don't know any woman on the planet. You ask any girl that's had her heart broken, and she's like, my ex is a narcissist, right? It's so played out. It's so overused. It's an overpopulated term, and people really don't know what a narcissist actually is. So it could be a guy that's just not into you. It could be a guy that has self-respect and some boundaries, and he's not vibing with what you're bringing to the table. And so you guys don't align, and then you get your feelings hurt, and he's a narcissist, right? He could be he might just be an asshole, but even if he's an asshole, it doesn't make him a narcissist.
I've seen women break up with a guy. He moves on quickly, starts seeing another woman, and then she calls him a narcissist. It's look, that could be a narcissistic trait. It really could be. That could be supply, it could be shelf behavior. Sure. It could be a lot of things. But in my book, I talk about the difference between these things and how to separate them, because a lot of them do bleed into each other. Yes.
So I guess core foundational things that you'd probably want to pay attention to is patterns. Okay. Now, I don't think that you need to run from every red flag that you see, but you do need to address it, and you need to watch how people respond to it. If you're a jerk is going to have different behaviors than somebody that's a true narcissist. A jerk is going to have more moments rather than a period of behavior.
Got it. Okay. It's a point where they get to, as opposed to this is their overall programming.
A jerk has moments and periods, even seasons, where they could be arrogant, they could be grandiose, they could be extremely self-centered, but they have the capacity for change, they have the capacity for remorse, and they have the capacity for accountability. With narcissism, it escapes all of those things. You'll see more forms of cognitive empathy. So, oh, your dog died. I know I should give you a hug and say something, but there's no change in behavior. It's just lip service. There's no action behind it unless it's self-serving or benefits them in some way. And the thing with women that they really need to kind of keep in mind is most women are really not that self-aware.
Okay. Yeah.
Like they're everything is like being done to them, and they have like that kind of lens, this victim lens, and every woman thinks they're an empath. Wrong. Like just like, and I'm writing about this again. I wrote about this in my book as well, which is a whole separate topic that I want to get into.
I literally did a whole video on this. So that when you ask women, hey, I would ask groups of women, do you think that you're better at being empathetic towards the opposite sex or empathetic towards people than men are in general?
Mm-hmm.
And all the women are like, yeah, of course, women intuition, it's far greater than men. And so of course you do any kind of scientific study, and it's like that. First off, that doesn't make sense evolutionarily. And second of all, it's just not true. Like men and women both have the same capacity. There's another study that goes over childcare. Basically, there's this belief, and honestly, it's a red pill belief, that women naturally, inherently are better at taking care of children than men. But when men are put into situations where there's like they have to be the primary caretaker, there's no data that shows that they're worse than women at it. Not changing diapers, not being able to tell when the baby needs to cry. Like it's something that both people have. It's just we believe in this one thing where it's just like men are, and to be fair, men are more subject to have autism than women are, about 2 to 1. But it's just really interesting. So going back to what you said before, there's a lot of women, because this has been an issue for me, where I've had talk to a woman and she's telling me how I feel. And I'm like, how are you removing my agency as a human being by telling me how I feel? You don't know how I feel. It's important for me to know how you feel, and you can definitely express to me how you feel, but stop telling me how I feel. And that's it becomes, they're like, no, I understand. And they start misusing words like quantum and energy and things like this. And I'm like, I don't know how to have a conversation with you anymore because you're telling me how I feel and you're sure that I'm right. And when I tell you you're not right, that, hey, listen, I wasn't upset, I wasn't looking at that girl, whatever. The response that I get very quickly is, oh, you're overcompensating or you're making up for it. And it's like, no, I'm just not having that emotion that you think that I'm having.
Yeah, I think there's so much like pop psychology going on that everybody's a therapist, everybody's a spiritual coach, everybody's a this, and they like lack basic fundamental understanding of psychology, and they just go off of what they see on TikTok. And it's like, you're so off. But going back to like, just like you made the point that most people are not narcissists, right? But we all carry narcissistic traits.
Sure.
Most people aren't empaths either. Okay. Yeah. And just because you were dealing with an or, or even a narcissist, that doesn't make you an empath. That's something completely different. And in my opinion, those things are more rooted in low self-esteem and fear rather than actual empathy.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that. There's another thing, you used the word victimhood before.
Yeah.
I almost see victimhood as a religion. Being a performance coach, I see victimhood very similar to religion. The way you can spread it, the way that it can never be wrong.
Yeah.
And the way that it can define you as a human being. So there's some people, like I'm saying this as a Christian. I have some family members and some friends of family members, like who may be older, and they use religion literally as a crowbar just to judge other people. That's the only reason. It's chicken fried judgment. Yep. That's all it is. It's Southern Baptist judgment. And it's like, that's not, they're perverting religion and then telling you, hey, I'm praying for you every day for you to do exactly what I want you to do as a son or a nephew or a sister or whatever. And then they use this sanctimonious like pulpit to say, I'm right because I'm praying for you to change. And you see the same thing with victimhood. It's incredible. Like some of my most arrogant clients, you would think that they're like, they have this delusions of grandeur.
Well, it's almost like cool to be a victim now.
Yes.
It's like cool to be a survivor. It's like, it's popular, right? And people don't really kind of look inward and take ownership and accountability of their own behavior or the situations that could have created possibly some of these conditions for them. Now, I'm not saying that hurt is okay, abuse is okay, but we have to be able to have like the foresight, the insight to look at our role in some of our relationship conflicts, even if that's picking bad partners, what part of this are you contributing to that? And that's super important. There's 3 types of manipulators. There's the master, There's the Messiah, and then there's the martyr, which is what victimhood is.
The martyr is your mom when you come home. Not my mom. My mom's incredible, but your mom when you come home and you want to go eat with your friends, and she wants to cook for you. You don't cook. She doesn't cook for you. She gets angry.
Well, or she's just like, oh, okay. Or you see this passive aggressiveness, like care responses, right? Where it's like, oh, like they inflict internal wounding, and they. It's kind of like they're using guilt or shame as a way to control your behavior, right? Like it's not anything I'm doing. I'm just trying to do something nice for you. But oh, how dare you reject my act of care? That makes you a bad person, right? And now people are motivated from a feeling of guilt. Like that's a very strong way that people are manipulated, and something that people who describe themselves as empaths typically fall into. That's not an empathic trait. You're just all somebody has to do to manipulate you is make you feel bad. That's got nothing to do with empathy or you being an empath. You just have poor boundaries.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. The victim, well, like I say, it as a religion. There's the arrogant guy who's like, I deserve everything, or everyone wants me, likes me, wants to be around me. Or there's the other arrogance, which is, oh my God, when I go through my breakup, what am I going to tell people? I'm like, no, but we're trying to pay rent. We don't give a like nobody. The number of women where I've seen this, and men too, where it's like, I'm going through a breakup or I just lost my job. What am I going to tell people? I'm like, you don't need a press conference. No one cares. Yeah. No one will care in 2 weeks.
Nobody really does care, honestly. Like they might like be watching for a little bit, but everybody loves their own life and talking about themselves, and everybody feels like they're the most important person in the room. They'll get over it.
One of the most liberating feelings, and this is going to sound very nihilistic, but it's like, if I died, my friends would definitely care for about 3 weeks and they would just go on with their life. And maybe once a year when my video comes up on Snapchat, they'd repost it. And that's about all I'd get. And I'm totally fine with that. And it's very liberating because it lets me know I can make mistakes and still get away with it. It lets me know that I can take chances and still get away with it. A lot of people are like, they legitimately think, this is especially, I'm going to be honest with you here, it's a lot of my European or Eastern European, Indian, and Asian clients who come from very homogenous, structured environments. They care so much about what their family thinks about them. And I'm like, and then they transfer that when they get older in their development to every single person. Like a big one is, hey, Michael, I'll go out to a bar with my friends and I don't drink. And everyone's asking me why I don't drink. What do I do? And I'm like, who gives a like, who cares that if you're not drinking and they're judging you for it? Why? Like, what is going wrong with inside of you to where you care that much about it? And you realize it's transference from mother and dad saying, sit in the corner, be quiet, no creativity, do what everyone else says, sit in class, shut up, do your homework. And they get that their whole life. And then they get out and it's just like they've made this whole world about, what do I do when I lose my job? Or what do I do? How do I post this on social media? I'm like, no one cares, bro. It's so crazy. And then the other one that's really massive is, that won't work for me. It works for everyone else. It's basically Galileo explaining to the Pope that the earth goes around the sun, and the Pope being like, no, that's not true. I have clients where it's like, I'll literally explain to them something that works, and I'll have 10 of my other clients being like, this works, just do it. Even if you don't understand it, it's like, no, it won't work for me. No, it won't work for me. That's also a form that I've seen of narcissism, like high levels of arrogance, to where it's like, you have, because if it does work for you, then you can't be a victim anymore. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's another thing that I've seen where it's like, you can't be, if you take away their victimhood, then they get very angry. Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The other one thing I want to talk about is, with you specifically, is the idea of therapy, and how it should probably be attached to someone's physical fitness. And what I mean by that is, I've listened to several therapists before where it's just like, they want you to be expressive, but not really. Like, I can't remember who it was that said this, but like, your diet, sleep habits, and exercise should be something that your therapist is looking into. And if they're not, then it can be detrimental.
That's interesting. Therapists have to be a little careful with this one, to be honest with you, because we have licensing and all this other stuff that we have to be mindful of. And we can't impose our personal values and beliefs on other people. But I can tell you that I think it's incredibly important in mental health. I think that I think look better, feel better.
Yeah.
I really do. I think having a body that's healthy and functional is essential to it's a form of self-respect, and it's like your outward appearance, I think a lot of times reflects how you're feeling inwardly as well. You know, even your space, how you live, like these things are very important, and like taking care of yourself is an important aspect of just mental health. Like I know that at least for myself, being physically fit is incredibly important. And if I don't work out, or if I skip workouts, or even if I eat poorly for a prolonged period of time, I don't feel good mentally. I do feel off. I tend to get more anxious. I might have lower self-esteem. So I'm very diligent, just me personally, about maintaining those things. And if clients are open to it, I absolutely encourage them to do the same. I think it's part of overall well-being.
How do you cross that bridge? So you're dealing with someone you can clearly, if I have a client who's overweight, I don't have a problem telling them that, right? Because
Right.
how do you do that?
I can't really do that. So what I will do is if a client is distressed, or let's just say they're having, there are some creative ways I can get around it. Depends who it is. Okay. Let's say I got a girl, she's got a crush on a guy. You know, I can always kind of take the route of, well, what character traits does this guy have that you really want? And then I'll reflect that back to her and be like, do you embody those traits? Because physical attractiveness is going to be on that for that list. Sure. Right. And so girls have to kind of be a bit objective and say, and I would do the same for a guy client as well. It goes both ways. But that's a way that I might be able to skirt around that and bring that up. And but I would ask them, is there usually what I can find is these body positive, like this movement, they're actually not super comfortable with it, to be honest with you.
Oh, speaking of
which,
let
me just finish this thought. Yeah. Okay. They're actually not. There's usually something that's causing them some distress. Yes. And so I'll usually be able to determine what that is. And then I'll say like, okay, so like, if you're really comfortable with how you feel, because it's not just about being overweight, it's about health, right? And that's what you really kind of want to focus on. And so there might be a lack of mobility. They might want to wear certain things that they can't wear. They might find that their options for attracting a partner might be more reduced. Yeah. Now, that might sound unpopular, but at the same time, there are like core like truths to this as well that, again, women have a harder time, I think, taking a look at.
I'm not going to say their names.
Didn't I sound so red pill right there?
Yeah, you did. Thank you, Myron. There are some influencers, body positive influencers. I'm not going to say their name. One of them is actually a friend of mine who very much into body positivity, got engaged, wedding day, skinny as a rail. Mm-hmm. Like clearly, like just decided to get in shape.
Well, look at people like Lizzo, right? Yeah. Body positive, right? Yeah. She's on that Ozempic shit. She's skinny now.
Is she skinny now? I haven't even seen that.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
But that shows you that they really weren't that comfortable with their body, which is fine. And like, look, I'm not saying this is good, bad, right, or wrong, but let's be honest with yourself about, are you really cool with this, or do you actually strive to be something else? It's just hard.
Yeah.
You know,
that's really interesting. Like, because I'm not here to shame people for being overweight. I know some people, that's what they want to do. What I'm saying is, I've read the data, Grain Brain by Dr. Perlmutter. There's several other books that go over this, how it starts to wear away at your mental health by being that overweight. And I've seen personally, like my friends who get heavy into like crazy conspiracy theories, flat earth, I very frequently see a massive weight gain right before the crazy conspiracy theories come. And maybe they're correlated to one or the other, but I've just seen people, especially to the 100 pounds of weight they gain, and then the craziness starts coming out, like just the lunacy. There's something there that I think we're maybe afraid to address or talk about. And so that's why I'm saying, I'm not just even, you bring up a great point. There's a cute guy you want to go out with. What do you think he'd be attracted to? That's a great point. Another idea might be, hey, look at this data that's showing that you're more likely to have Alzheimer's sooner. You're more likely to have plaque in your brain sooner by this diet that you're eating, right? So that's another thing that I thought is pretty big. But then the other issue, like I said before, is I think most therapists don't look at this at all. And it's like, it's so troubling to me because if modern therapy does not, if you have someone come into your office and they're morbidly overweight and they're telling you about all these problems, and the first thing you aren't asking is about their diet and exercise, I don't know how you're helping them. Does that make sense?
I think a lot of therapists do assess for sleep, and like anytime we diagnose, we have to rule out a general medical condition.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a health component that is attached to this, but we don't have as much liberty because it's really what the client comes to you with, not what I think is best for you.
Got it.
So I always take the angle of, is this actually causing you distress? Now, most people that are, most people that are overweight are struggling with some health issues and actually aren't as happy as they might project. Now,
Okay.
that should be approached with love, compassion, and no judgment, right? But that is the heart of the matter that we do tend to kind of skirt around.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, so you've done CBT.
I've done it all. Yeah.
What is the training like for CBT and DBT?
Well, I mean, honestly, they're very, very similar. I do more CBT, so I'll just kind of stay with that.
Okay.
Because that's kind of, I do DBT too, but I'm better at explaining CBT.
Yeah.
CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's really just saying, hey, like it's basically like the underlying premise is what you think affects how you feel.
Yeah.
So we all have kind of thinking errors, and I'll spare you guys the details on what.
But it has to do with rewiring. So it's like,
this is about rewiring.
This
your
is
brain.
the stimulus,
Mm-hmm.
and underneath here, this is going to be your mental reaction to it, and the wires are crossed.
Yes. So thoughts are like highways in your brain.
Okay.
Okay. So if I have a thought that I think all the time, either consciously or unconsciously, most of our thoughts are unconscious. They're just automatic. Okay. Then it creates kind of this groove or this highway in the brain that now becomes automatic. So if I'm a kid and somebody says, oh, you're ugly, I might internalize that comment. And every time I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I'm ugly. I'm ugly. I'm ugly. Well, now that thought becomes automatic, and that my neurocircuitry and my brain just automatically diverts to that. What I would do is I would come in, find that thought, that underlying core belief, and I would give you something to actually correct it with. Because a lot of times we're thinking all the time, but it doesn't mean that our thoughts are actually true or that there's even evidence to support it. It's usually just coming from a place of pain. And so I come in, provide some corrective feedback, some ways to counter that thought, and then help them regulate their emotion afterwards. That's a simple way of saying it, but it's actually quite a complex process.
Have you looked into behavioral activation therapy?
Not really, no.
So there were some researchers, they basically there's a behavioral portion of CBT, and they just did that part by itself and found the same efficacy with CBT. And so, again, I like to look at everything from evolutionary first principles. That makes obvious sense to me. People who did things more would be happier. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
When I think about the concept of the guy locked in his home, he purposely locks himself in his home. He watches pornography. He plays a ton of video games. He's got an online job. He does not get sunlight very often. And then all of a sudden he's suffering from depression. And then I think about my ancestor 75,000 years ago. He has to go out and procure protein for his tribe. And in doing so, he has higher status in his tribe, more sexual selection. He's getting more sunlight. He's also communicating with other men. It would make sense to me that evolution would reward the second guy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've never in my whole life been depressed for one moment with a basketball in my hand. Not one moment have I ever been depressed on a jiu-jitsu mat. Never have I been depressed throwing a football, not for 1 second in my life. And I can't remember I remember being depressed in the weight room, but that's soon over by the end of the session, right? And so the idea from behavioral activation therapy is doing things. So for instance, going out with friends and maybe playing football, or doing things with friends in order to change those pathways. I don't know if you.
Okay, so I'm following I'm picking up what you're putting down, and yes, that does ring a bell. Yes, I do think that there is some truth to that, but I also see the other side of this where sometimes there are things that supersede that. That can be a very, I don't want to minimize or downplay mental health issues. That can be a very superficial fix to a very complex problem. And sometimes there are biochemical components that are going on that facilitate depression. And like, if I'm like really looking at true depression, it is incapable they are incapable of doing some of those things.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. If you're,
so there are degrees of severity, but I think maybe for some of those more mild cases, yes, it helps. Yes, it can help, but is it a fix-all? No, certainly not. And mental health issues do need to be taken very seriously.
So the other one was when we were talking about before about this was, I thought was an interesting point. It's like the first episode that we did, which is a lot of people, the pop psychologists, the therapists, they want to say, well, this person has narcissism, antisocial personality disorder, their borderline personality disorder, whatever. And the real answer, and I love, it was Dr. Martha Stout who wrote this in her book, The Sociopath Next Door. He's like, that's not your job to tell which cluster B personality disorder this person has. Which it's your job is to set boundaries and say, this person has exceeded those boundaries and they need to get out of my life. Right. And I've heard you say something similar.
Yes.
It's like, it's not narcissism or NPD. Can you go over that?
Yeah. Well, like to your point, it's not about the diagnosis. And I think right now there's such a shift on, is he a narcissist? Is he this or that? And it's just like, does it really matter at the end of the day what they are? Whether they're a jerk or a narcissist or whatever, like if they're hurting you, like leave, So here's the thing with, one thing I need to say is a narcissist is not a DSM diagnosis.
Yeah.
And that's what so many people are just like these things that people are like messing with, like these are real, like complex issues that everybody thinks that they can just diagnose. Like, please. A narcissist is a pop psychology term, okay, to describe somebody, and it's real, but it's not diagnosable, okay? Like I can't diagnose somebody as a narcissist. I can diagnose them with NPD. That exists. So it's selfish traits, right? It's somebody that has a very extreme amount of grandiosity, sense of superiority, entitlement, lack of empathy, lack of remorse. These are like the core components of this. And in my book, I'm actually would like to shift some of those core traits. I think that they're actually quite different now.
Do you want me to read the audiobook? The audio version?
What do you mean?
Like I'll pretend to be you and I'll read the audio version.
You can.
Yeah, I'll do the voice for your audio version.
Okay, that's perfect. Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah.
So you have those, but the thing with a narcissist is that it doesn't actually cause them any distress, like none, right? They are not bothered by it. You are the problem. They're like, nothing is wrong with them, right? Now with NPD, it's slightly different. You have all of that, but they recognize that it causes them distress either socially, occupationally, or
a judge might recognize it. Isn't this something where it's like a person may have to go to counseling for this? Like
yes,
court-appointed counseling?
Yeah, they could be court ordered. Yeah, but like again, a court order with a narcissist, you're not going to get anywhere as a therapist. Like, you just might as well just save it. But like with NPD, yes, that would be more likely to be in the court ordered sphere of things.
What I'm saying is the judge recognizes the traits.
It could
sends you to therapy, and then you are diagnosed as NPD.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So similar to conduct disorder for someone who's under 18,
yes,
or antisocial personality disorder.
Yes.
Like for instance, for those of you who don't know, psychopath and sociopath are not diagnostic terms. It's antisocial personality disorder. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a heavy criteria you have to meet as well.
Yeah.
Big. You can't just be like, oh, they're this. That you have to have very specific things and timelines on those things.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to NPD, the person with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, has all those things, but they recognize that it's causing people distress or things aren't working for them.
Yeah.
They recognize that, whereas a narcissist is just like, they're the problem.
Yeah.
So for example, let's just say I have a sense of entitlement where I work. Like, I don't know why my boss hasn't given me a promotion and isn't acknowledging me and rada, right? And, but they keep getting fired. They showing up late. They might be like, okay, I need to do something differently to get my boss's affection. So I'm going to start bringing donuts every day, right? They're able to tap into something, but it's still not genuine remorse, empathy.
Right.
They're not doing it because they're
imitating.
They're They're just like, what can I do about this that's going to make it work for me more?
Yeah. They're imitating what someone who's empathic would do.
They're imitating. They're chameleons. They're imitating change. They have no desire. They still don't think that they're the problem, but they recognize something isn't working, so they're adapting to it.
So I guess the point we were trying to make before, you're a guy, a girl cheats on you 3 times. You're trying to figure out whether or not she's a psychopath or a narcissist. And the real answer is stop dating the girl who cheated on you 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make any difference. This is something I was going to tell you this off camera, but I'll tell you this now. I had someone who had done some pretty horrible stuff to me previously. And I had come, just from all the stuff that I read, I had come to the realization that the closure I was going to get from this situation was going to happen internally. And I should never expect closure from that person ever. And something crazy happened, Jamie. That person came to me 4 years later and apologized for everything and took accountability for it. This person also happened to tell me no more drugs, and she's going to therapy on a regular basis now. And I'm just sitting there, and some of my other friends, we all hung out with her, and they were all like, that's a completely different person. Like, who is that person? And I remember telling her, I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, I never expected this closure. I went on for the rest of my life expecting I was never going to get this. And for you to give it to me was awesome. But it's one of these things where it's like, going back to what you said before, part of the closure is I need to diagnose this person as a narcissist. I need to diagnose them as a psychopath or whatever. And the real answer is they need to not be in your life. Right. And that's the boundary that you have to create and not worry about that closure so much.
I'm really happy that you got that, because that's wonderful when people can give you that.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been really hurt and wounded. And I do think that there's a part of our heart that really does need some healing in that area. But I agree with you. It's not tied to them. Yeah. Now, if you can get it, great. But I always have this kind of expression that I share with all my clients. I don't go to the person that shot me and expect them to take the bullet out. Yeah. I don't do that. And your closure is inherently going to come from you and things that you can do to heal. And I absolutely believe that you can.
Yeah. So let's talk about this imposter syndrome. So you talked about this on previous podcasts. I'll tell you, I had imposter syndrome, but because you mentioned before about low self-esteem. When I started getting hired to host events here in Las Vegas, when I first moved here, it was a function of like, the cool kids are over here. I'm not included with them. And I remember the analogy I would say is I could never get on stage at Access. That was like the litmus, right? Mm-hmm. And then Rehab had hired me to do an event, and my name was on the flyer. And I remember walking up to Rehab. Rehab, by the way, is a pool. I wasn't actually going to Rehab. It's a pool at Hard Rock Hotel. And I remember thinking, are they going to let me in? Do you understand? Mm-hmm. My name's on the flyer, and I'm still like, are they going to? And of course, the GM comes out, walks me in or whatever. And I just remember thinking, like, while I was there, I remember I was on stage, I was hosting some event, and I kept thinking almost subconsciously, someone's going to come tap me on the shoulder and be like, sorry, this was all a mistake. You're not supposed to be here. Come with us. Let's get out. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And so that was kind of the imposter syndrome that I felt several times, or some podcasts that I would get invited on, or sometimes some of my guests. I remember when I had Dr. Buss on, I was like, there's somebody who's going to tap me on the shoulder and be like, this is a serious academician. What's he doing on your show? We need you to take this down. I kept thinking that was going to happen. Yeah. Right. And so, but subconsciously, it was just a feeling, just a twinge. It's not a conscious thing, but I was just wondering, like, imposter syndrome. I have a lot of clients that's how they describe the issue as well.
I feel like imposter syndrome is, again, a pop psychology term that is socialized and accepted, and it's low self-esteem. That's what it is. Okay. So let me just break down that example that you shared. What you're dealing with is your split. Your logical mind knows that, hey, I'm on this flyer. I have clearly, like, I've made it in some sense. Yeah. I'm achieving it, but your belief system is rooted somewhere else, and you're experiencing some cognitive dissonance there. So what we have to do is we have to kind of blend those two things and marry those two things together. So what you're doing is you're probably saying, and this is some CBT, okay, you're probably saying something to yourself like, there's probably a root of unworthiness.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, right. Low self-esteem.
Shout out to high school.
That's what, but that's what it is. High school, yeah. You know, we like to brand and we like to kind of put these things on it. Like, it's just low self-esteem, guys. It's feeling like you don't deserve it. It's feeling unworthy.
Is this situational low self-esteem? Because I
yes,
definitely don't feel like I have low self-esteem.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So like, I might feel really confident. I might feel really confident speaking here, but I might have trouble walking down a runway or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that
context specific.
I think so. But at the end of the day, it's still a root of unworthiness. And that is low self-esteem. It's feeling undeserving. It's disbelief. It's low self-esteem within that context.
I've met some guys who like to show off their wealth as much as possible with watches and cars.
Mhm.
And then I've met other people that like absolutely could afford the car of their dreams,
Yes.
but won't buy it because they feel like that's not them, and they would feel disingenuous reward, but it's still the car of their dreams. Like you would be happy inside that 1969 Barracuda. You're just afraid that other people would look at you as phony, and that's another form, I guess, of imposter syndrome.
I don't know if I would. Well, I like that angle actually. I haven't really. It's an unpopular angle that I don't think I've really spent too much time on. But I would just say it's authentic, not necessarily a form of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It disagrees with who they are, their core fundamental like sense of self. They're not the flashy guy, so doing so is not necessarily imposter syndrome. It's just not who they are.
Yeah. There's a couple things. We never talked about this before. I had CJ Sparks on, who's one of my best friends, a couple weeks ago, and I'd never really talked to her about her situation with her mom and dad. She explained it to me. Her dad was heavy, very religious. She couldn't even watch Jurassic Park because it
sounds like my parents.
Yeah, because God created the dinosaurs, so you can't watch Jurassic Park. So I've never asked you specifically. You mentioned in general your home upbringing, but specifically growing up, your relationship with your mom and dad. Like, what was that like?
I don't think I've ever talked about this. Yeah. Tough.
Tough.
Yeah, tough. My household was. This is hard because I know that they might watch this, and so
are both of your parents Hispanic?
No. So my mom is French and German, and my dad is Sicilian.
Okay.
So Italian. And I just always say Italian because I look dark, and it's just easier. I grew up in an abusive household. There's no other way to put it. I had a lot of fear in my home. But it was a very religious household. So those two dynamics at play created a lot of confusion for me psychologically, because I was like, how is there God and this in the same space? So there, for example, it was just really wacky. There was abuse going on. I didn't really have any protection from my mom. I will say that I have a good relationship with my parents now.
Yes.
A lot of healing and forgiveness has been done, but I would walk home and there would be holes in the wall. Like if a dog was barking too loud, I remember my dad would shoot it. Like it was it was a lot. It was a very intense environment for me to grow up in. If I had a headache, I was possessed by a demon. Like it was a lot. It was a lot to kind of figure out.
It is interesting. Yeah. I've talked to, not to correlate what you're talking about with being in a cult, but I've had a few people come on the show who's been in a cult before.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in a situation where it was not an abusive home relationship, but I've had a business partner who was just clearly manipulating all of us. And I remember the feeling of freedom when I got out, just willing to just attack the world and work as hard as I could because I understood objective reality when they didn't. I know that may be a weird analogy.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I just remember I had a business partner who was completely constricting us. He was stealing clients for himself. He wasn't paying us our commissions. He did all this crazy stuff. And the moment we got rid of him, we started doing 6 figures a month. Like immediately, we were like 3 rabid dogs. And all we wanted to do was work because we saw what the other side felt like. And it motivated the shit out of me. And I wonder, because me and my parents argued a lot, but certainly not an abusive relationship at home. Maybe there may have been a little codependency and passive aggressive behavior, but like that's pretty much every family. Very lucky to have my mom and dad live with me the entire time I was in high school and college. But I do look back at some of maybe traumas I experienced during high school and then think, okay, that's why I like going to places with 12 girls because girls really didn't like me back then, so I see that kind of stuff. So what you're talking about before, maybe the irrational sense of your growing up, some of the irrational things that they were doing made you grasp rationality more.
I think so. I think for me, a saving grace for me was school. Actually, I loved school. I always wanted to be in school, and I had really amazing teachers that saw something in me and they fed me. They fed me, and it was safe for me there. And so I think I threw myself in education, and I'm sure subconsciously I was just like, let me figure out what's going on with me. Let me figure this stuff out. And I think that kind of maybe opened some doors for me there.
You said something in another show I thought was interesting. Forgiveness, you have to do it every day. right?
Yeah. So like I look, forgiveness is a one-time decision.
Yes.
Okay. It is a decision to forgive, and forgiveness is not a feeling. The feeling comes later. But not always. It's saying that I like the best way that I know how to describe forgiveness. What I have found is I'm giving up my right to get justice. I'm giving up my right for vindication. I'm giving up my right to ever hear you say that I'm sorry, that I was wrong, and I'm not your judge and I'm not your jury, and I'm letting that go and I'm moving on with my life. Like that's the best way that I know how to describe forgiveness. That has nothing to do with how I feel about you. And it also has nothing to do with if I'm still going to have a relationship with you, because I think a lot of times we think, oh, if I forgive you, I have to have you in my life still. Wrong.
Yeah.
Like reconciliation is different for forgiveness, and reconciliation depends how they show up.
Yeah.
You know, if
So,
that's safe or not.
Yeah. You can forgive someone and then you see them at a party with someone else. And then all of a sudden it's very, you have to, that's why I thought was interesting what you said, because again, let's say from my audience's perspective, men who've been hurt by women, it's like one of these things where they don't want to forgive, but you kind of lose the perspective that you're not forgiving her to do her a favor. A lot of times she doesn't even know you forgave her.
I know.
A lot of times she doesn't care. You're forgiving her to do yourself a favor so that now we can build a business, get a new bench press PR, read up 60 books in a year, do 75 hard, drink a gallon of water every day, get some, like we're forgiving her so that you can do better and not care about whether, because the whole karma fate, oh my God, this girl broke up with me and she's going to deal with bad karma. It's just, it's so toxic for a lot of my clients. It doesn't matter if she breaks up with you and marries a billionaire and lives happily ever after. You need to not care.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was like, why does it matter? I go, when you're actually like really healed, you don't care what they're doing. Your energy is on you and your life, and they're like an afterthought. If you're so focused on their stuff, it's a good sign that, you know, they're still the focus of your attention and all your energy is going towards them. And, you know, like forgiveness is not easy, but when you don't forgive, it bonds you to that person.
Yes.
And I do believe that I am a Christian, and there's a whole other thing in my book where I go into the spiritual aspect of narcissism, which is interesting. But when you don't do these things, there's a spiritual connection and it bonds you to them. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be bonded to anybody that's hurt me.
Yeah. That's a great analogy for it. Like being like actually bonded to them having some level of control over you.
Exactly. Like if somebody can control my mind, if I'm still thinking about you, if I'm looking you up on Instagram, like, ew,
yeah,
gross.
But,
like, no.
I believe personally in abundance as a form of healing, meaning like if my friend did me wrong, I have so many friends who care about me, I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice they did me wrong. And that's what I try to preach to my guys. It's like, if you lost an opportunity with your job, with a friend group, or with something like that, if you have enough abundance, you don't even notice something went wrong.
I don't know if that's true, Michael, because I have a lot of abundance in my life and I know when somebody's done me wrong.
Right.
I know. And look, I don't lie. Like it hurts me. Like it does hurt me. Like,
yeah.
When you pour into somebody, when you're there for them, when you pray for them, when you coach them, you counsel them, you whatever, you're investing in that relationship, and they do you dirty. Oh, I notice it. Believe me. But
yeah.
I am real quick to forgive. I make a decision right then and there. And I do something really wonky too, just spiritually. I literally bless them because that's what the Bible says to do.
Bless
and
your enemies.
I do, and I don't mean it. I do not mean it. Okay. But I say it out of obedience, and somehow that gets my journey jump started.
Yeah. I think I've gotten to the point where I'm so maybe addicted to putting out fires in my business and all the things going on in my life personally, to where I truly don't even notice. Like I've had people bring it up to me. Hey, so-and-so was talking. I was like, bro, I don't even have, and maybe it's my inherent narcissism that's causing me to not notice, but I
lack of empathy
for sure. Like I've described things that like when I've been on dates and guys are like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, I didn't even notice. I was just like having fun. It wasn't even something that I noticed. But I just thought it was interesting. You mentioned that part. And there was another thing you said that really I aligned with, which was how triggered you get when you hear people say things happen for a reason.
Oh, This one gets me.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart just jumped. I hate this. I absolutely hate it. I think I get triggered because I look at things in my own life and some of the things that I've suffered. And I was like, I didn't deserve that. And I also don't believe that I serve a loving God who was like, yeah, she needed to go through that. I don't like that. That fundamentally like disagrees with how I view God and who I think he is. Now, what I do think is that we live in a sinful world. We live in a world where hurt people, and I have also hurt people. And I think because of that, we experience pain and injustice and a whole bunch of things. But I don't think that the premise for that is it's God's will or it's supposed to happen. Because when I look at things like child abuse, I could never, ever say that. I think it's disgusting. Now, what I will say is that I think that God can use anything that you've been through for good.
Yeah. My whole thing is those kids in Sierra Leone who had their limbs blown off. It must have been because they didn't pray hard enough. That's why.
Ugh.
Those kids.
Did you see that girl about the flood with the Texas floods?
Yeah.
Did you guys see that?
It must be they didn't pray hard enough. That's why they got
my
or the other one is like those kids in Poland in 1939. They got thrown into those camps because they didn't pray hard enough.
I can't. My blood is boiling.
Yeah, it really it drives me crazy when I hear people because there's too many like objectively horrific people who become billionaires, and there's too many wonderful people who die of stage 4 pancreatic cancer before they turn 60 for you to actually believe in this nonsense. And that's what it really bothers me, because the other thing that it does is it allows you another venue to not take accountability for your actions. You're rich and famous because karma, fate, and destiny, as opposed to having to work for it. And that's it, to me. That's maybe not quite like victimhood, but it's similar. It's almost like a religion, right? Yeah. And it's one of these things where that's why I have a big problem with people believing that they're just going to physically manifest things without putting in any work. And the other one is that somehow karma is going to punish your ex because they cheated on you. And I'm waiting for that day of judgment to come down. And it's that whole thing. Things happen for a reason. I think it's kind of an unhealthy mindset, whether it's to say the only thing that I can control, my internal locus of control, is how I feel, and then the actions that I take based on how I feel. And then the other one, this is like what I consider to be maturity, is understanding that I do have some control over how I feel, and I need to take some ownership how I feel instead of thinking that this is all external.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Do you believe, so I really, this is going to be real controversial and maybe some of your audience won't like this, but I don't believe in karma, fate, or destiny at all. I believe Jesus Christ died for me on a cross, but like that's, as far as the other stuff is concerned, I truly do not believe this idea of destiny. I have my own agency to choose how successful I become. I don't think it was predestined in any way whatsoever. I don't believe in karma. I just see maybe on some scale where it's like if I'm just to people over and over again, eventually shitty things will happen to me. I think to some extent that's the case, but I just don't think that's a rule. And then, I feel like those things are words that we use to not take accountability for our life.
So, yeah, I actually agree with you on those things. I used to really kind of be on that side of it. I have switched. How do I explain this? I believe you reap what you sow. Now, I don't believe that you're necessarily going to see that manifest, because I think that God's judgment isn't really our judgment. Okay. But it's, again, none of my business. I believe that you reap what you sow. I think that if you do harm to people, that somehow does kind of come back to you, because I think that that's just God's law, and that's the law that we're all under, just my own personal belief there. As far as like karma, no, like fortune telling, like I'm a Taurus, I'm a Sag, I'm a this, I'm a that. It's all to me. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I think it's something that people use to help them feel more secure, or even use as an excuse as to why they are the way that they are. And it's really just, I don't know. I think it's kind of taking a backseat approach to life in a lot of ways.
I think it's absolving yourself of personal responsibility.
I think it can. Yeah. Like when I hear, God, did I ever tell you about, so I had a little like thing that I did in school where I kind of veered off and I did this thing in persuasion and manipulation. Very interesting, but I decided to study psychics. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
There is a study that was done. I'll tell you this. It was very, very interesting. Study that was done where a psychic came to a group of students and she gave everybody their like fortune telling and whatever. And so everybody like reads their personalized card or whatever. And, you know, the teacher comes back and he starts asking the students, like, how accurate do you think that this psychic was? You know, and they're like, yeah, like this psychic knew me, like da 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 da. And he goes, okay, well, the psychic had given everybody the exact same thing, is what it was. She gave everybody the exact same thing. And so whenever I look at things like this and horoscopes, I'm like, that can literally apply to anybody.
Yes.
And everybody's like, oh, but it's so specific and it's so this. One of my clients actually like had this happen and she was being robbed blind. And I know their tactics. Psychics do very, very specific things when they're trying to get money. And I knew that that was going to be her angle with this girl. And she was like, oh, but she's so specific. And I was like, okay, well, tell me what she said. She's like, well, she said this is like, she told you nothing.
Yeah.
I go, she actually told you nothing. Like, oh, you're having trouble in a relationship. Well, isn't everybody like you know what I mean? Just very general. So I just, I have zero faith in stuff like that. I think people use it for a sense of security and safety. And that's the need that they're trying to meet with some of these things.
Yeah. So there's another one, I believe, where they do the same thing. The psychic does a reading on all the people in the room. And then the professor deliberately puts the wrong ones in each other's hands. And then says, hey, does this, again, the site, like basically you're getting the reading of the person 4 spots down.
Yes.
And then you're reading it like, oh yeah, this is completely accurate for me. And then cannot grasp. By the way, if you guys want to see, I did an episode against, oh God, what's the guy's name? I can't even remember his name right now. GG33. I forgot. I did what was it? Yeah, Gary the Numbers Guy. I do one, and I go over all the biases, explaining how what he's saying is utter nonsense. There's so many other ones. There's one, they basically do correlations between astrological signs. So, whatever Sagittarius is supposed to be with Libra or not. I can't remember. And so what they do is they look at the success rate for relationships based on those signs.
Yes.
And the correlation is 0. It is absolutely unequivocally, there is no correlation between the astrological sign of who you're with. And this is, we're beating a dead horse. That's not the point. The point is when I bring this up to women, how totally and completely unwilling they are to even conceive of the idea that astrology is not real. It is madness to me how when I see this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, scientific rigor built the world. Scientific rigor invented psychology. Scientific rigor invented the world that we're in. The buildings, the polymers we use, the furniture we sit on, and the fiber optic cables and satellites that we use to broadcast our podcasts. And yet, for some reason, in this one area, it's just like 5 times as many women as men believe in astrology. And I don't understand how this is gotten even more pervasive, and I do think it's also damaging because there's a push to put women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But if I work in engineering and you don't believe that the earth is round, or if you don't believe in basic physics, I can't hire you. Does that make sense?
I understand.
If I want to hire you for some astrophysics or physics department and you truly believe in astrology, how can I hire you? You believe in objective non-reality. I don't know what to do. And so I think that's another issue. And whenever I hear this, I would expect the women who are listening to this to be offended, be like, no, Michael, no, they don't get offended. They just think I'm not talking about them. They're just like, oh, Michael, you just don't understand. You just need to be open. That's something a Libra would say, Michael. That's such a Libra thing to say. And I was like, that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The actual gymnastics that they do, the mental gymnastics, to still believe that something like this is true when it isn't. I also want to talk to you about, you did mention before you were married to someone who's a narcissist and then he left. But before that, I didn't understand you were in a relationship as a minor and that person was taken away from you. What was that whole situation about?
Well, I guess I had abuse before him, right? And I'm not diagnosing my ex as a narcissist.
Sure.
I have to say that.
Yeah.
Okay. But a lot of traits that resembled that. Okay. But prior to that, I was in a very severely abusive relationship. And I can see my patterns. I've looked at my patterns. I know why I was drawn to what I was drawn to. But I experienced a sexual assault in that relationship. And then I was also severely beaten and almost lost my life. And I don't think I've ever shared that. But I almost lost my life in that relationship when I was 17. And it was horrific. And that was my first kind of exposure to real physical abuse in all of those ways, but also the psychological abuse. And I remember kind of like one of the worst things wasn't actually the beatings or the abuse. Because there were times I was beaten so badly I couldn't use my legs, and having rug burns on my arms from trying to army crawl out of the house, and horrible things had happened. But the worst one was being beaten publicly in front of his family.
Oh, wow.
And I was asking for help. Nobody helped me. That was the worst feeling I think I had ever felt. And then, so I really didn't know. I was such a damaged, broken person when I met my then husband. I had all this kind of trauma. So his traits and the things that he was doing looked like amazing to me, because I was coming from something so much worse than that. And it makes it harder to recognize glances of kindness mixed with some psychological, more covert abuses and manipulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then was it state mandated that they got rid of this dude?
So no. So because I was a minor, so look, when I this is complicated because my parents didn't save me. I had a cousin who did.
Okay.
And I remember when I went to work one day, and because I remember coming home and my mom was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "Oh, I ran into the coffee table." And she's like, "Okay." Like, there was just no real like due diligence there, unfortunately. And they couldn't recognize abuse if it hit them in the face. But I remember my injuries were so bad I couldn't keep hiding them. And the things he was doing were getting so big that it was like, couldn't hide it anymore. And so I remember having to tell my cousin an excuse, like he had taken my car, stolen my car while I was working. We worked together. And I had all these like marks on me and cuts, and I was just disheveled, and I showed up to work. And I finally told her what happened. And she was like, either you tell your parents or I'm going to tell your parents. And my dad is a police officer. So we ended up telling my parents, and I ended up staying with her for a little bit to get away. But there was I never filed charges against him. My parents never pressed charges against him, and I was a minor. I just ended up kind of hiding out with her. And then I started kind of going to therapy after that and rebuilding myself after that.
Is that where you think your interest in therapy came from?
No.
No.
I think like I had already, prior to that, I was already on the path of pursuing that, but it was new. And I've always been interested in the way people think, and I've always been interested in the way people behave. And I just kind of talked to somebody initially. I didn't really start going to therapy until probably 4 years after that.
Okay. Got it. And did you know, was this a fascination, or did you think that you were going to do this occupationally? Was there a point? I was
going to do it
occupationally?
I knew it. Yeah. By the time I'd actually spoken with a therapist, I had just started college. And so I was already pursuing my undergrad, doing psychology. I knew that I've never been a girl that doesn't know what she's here for. I know what I'm here for. And I've always been certain about it. And so I just hit the ground running.
Doesn't it, this is a way side note here, but people will ask me sometimes, am I happy or sad or whatever? And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm busy. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like, genuinely, if I look back, I'm like, I'm very happy because I get to talk online for a living. I am not doing yard work. You know what I'm saying? In South Texas, I'm not a roofer. This is what I want to do. And I just think because I'm so busy, I don't even consider, because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't even consider whether or not I'm depressed. And I just like listening to you say that, it's like you always knew this is what you were going to do.
Yeah.
Do you feel like I don't even consider some of the things that other people, I'm not idle.
Yeah, I've never been idle. And I do think that has helped me. I have always had a forward vision of the future. And that has helped me incredibly. Like, I don't know how I got through what I went through. I don't know how I went to school and did what I did and did all the things that I was doing while some of those things were happening to me, because nobody would have known. I handled myself with incredible integrity and strength, really. And I don't know how I kept it all together, but I did. But I was always focused on my future self and the life that I was going to create for myself. Like, that's where my head was always. I was like, it's kind of like, how am I going to get out of here? Yeah. How am I, like, I wasn't relying on anybody else but me.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'm the one that's got to save myself here because nobody's coming to rescue me.
Yeah. Then the marriage that you had that ended, we discussed that. If you guys want to go watch the first interview we did, what I'm actually interested in, I love asking women this as a data point. How did you meet him? What did you feel when you first met him? And then what were and I don't even mean feelings, the physical actions that led to, he lived nearby, we worked together, whatever, that caused this person to get into your life? And then what were the first, like, say, few red flags that you ignored in the beginning?
Oof, that's a great question. Well, he was my boss.
Okay. Okay. I've heard that one before. Yep.
Yeah. So he was my boss. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've always been attracted to people in positions of power.
Okay.
That's just something that has always been like a tick for me. Okay. So I was very attracted to that. And I'm young, like I'm very young at this time still. So when I met him, I was in my very early 20s. So, and he was a little older than me, and he was in a position of power. He was the GM of this restaurant. And I remember I was waitressing. Okay. And I had a table that was giving me a hard time. Okay. And he saw it. He was paying attention, and he noticed that they were giving me a hard time. And I remember I was like checking out, and I remember it was it. And he comes over and he goes, do you want this like comped off their bill? And they had already closed out and whatever, and they didn't tip me. That's what it was. Yeah. They didn't tip me. And he ended up comping and changing the receipt so that I got money from that ticket. Okay. And I was like, like, you got to understand, Michael, somebody being nice to me didn't happen too often.
Got it.
Okay. The fact that he was in tune with that and he was paying attention and can see that I was frustrated. I wasn't going around talking about it. He was paying attention to me. I felt important, and I felt protected. I had never felt protected before, ever in my life. And then that kind of started something. And then I remember I was out with some girlfriends. I was at a bar drinking, and he was there.
Yeah.
And I thought he was attractive. I was attracted to him. And at the time I smoked cigarettes at the time, and I went out, I saw that he was smoking. It was my opportunity to connect with him. And it was kind of naughty because I was like younger and he's my boss, but I was like, I'm going to see, I'll make myself available kind of thing. And so I went outside and I asked him for a cigarette, and then he kissed me.
Okay.
And that's what happened. And then that was like the secret thing, because I'm like, oh, fuck. Well, now, like, how are we going to do this? Like, you're my boss kind of thing. And then I ended up quitting my job.
Wow. Okay.
And then because I didn't want to jeopardize, like it started very fast and it was very intense. And then we were just together, and he was a man that actually took care of me in ways that I had never been taken care of. Like,
so the specifics I was asking before is how long, and did you move in with him immediately?
No. So we got together like pretty soon after that. And then I didn't move in with him for years later.
Years later.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there signs in the beginning, in the early, very beginning, that you look back now that maybe a woman watching this now could look back and say, okay, there's a problem here?
Yes. Two things that come to mind that were very early on that I was like, that's weird. What's that?
Yeah.
One was I was at dinner, or I was at lunch with one of my girlfriends, and he came and he met us there. And I had made a joke. It was literally just a joke.
Yes.
He got so offended, he stormed off, walked away, but he paid for our bill.
Yeah.
And I chased after him and I was like, hey, I wasn't trying to like offend you. What's going on? And he goes, and I found out later he went and hung out with his ex.
Yeah. So he's manipulating the situation.
I didn't know that at the time.
Picking a fight with you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that was one. Another one was this, and this became a big thing.
You narcissists writing this down? You guys all writing this down real quick?
This was a really unusual one, but it became a theme of what he would do. Was how he'd always bait me up against women.
Okay. Bait you? What do you mean?
Like he'd put me up against women. He'd triangulate me against women, create jealousy, fear, insecurity.
Okay.
So there was another girl that we worked with. Again, we were at a restaurant and we're all out having drinks with a big group of people. And this girl comes and sits on his lap.
That would be a problem.
I was like, huh? I was like, oh, hell no. And I'm feisty, Michael. So I don't
I'm
tolerate
aware.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so we'll just say I acknowledged it. Okay. So I like addressed it and he defended her and took up for her. And I was iced out and I was like, and I ended up apologizing at the time because I was like, oh, maybe I overreacted. Those were the two big things that happened to me that I was like, narcissist, allegedly.
But you didn't think it at the time. You look back
Michael,
now.
I didn't know even years after we were divorced that that's what that was.
Okay.
I think I mentioned this. This was our first show that we did together. I was out here living here for like about a year when I had started talking. I didn't open up to anybody about what I'd been through at all. Nobody knew. And I started talking to a psychologist that I was working under out here. And he was like, have you ever heard of narcissistic supply? And I was like, oh my God. Like when I started going into that, I was like, wow, this is all making sense. That's what this is. So even being a therapist, I had no idea that that's what this was. Because when you're in school, that's not what they teach you about NPD.
Yeah. So the other thing you did mention, which I thought was interesting, was the way he would use giving you and taking away physical affection as a point of leverage.
Absolutely.
Can you go over that?
Yeah. So, silent treatments a lot. So it's kind of like good girl, bad girl. Like I was a good girl or I was a bad girl. It's like black and white thinking, like I idealize you and then they absolutely hate you. So, I'll use this example. I used it last time. I remember we were in church and he did, like, it was very well known that he did not like me to touch him. Like, I knew that very well. We didn't sleep next to each other. We had pillowcases. He did not want to have physical touch. Like,
is there any data on that? Like, that seems very, very strange.
Yes, there is. They don't like intimacy. So
it's just narcissism in general.
And like a lot of narcissists do not like intimacy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean that they don't like sex.
Right.
Okay. But intimacy, like non-sexual forms of intimacy, things like that. So touching, hugging, kissing, loving, like things like that. They'll tell you otherwise, but they'll do something differently behind closed doors. So I didn't touch him. I was just kind of conditioned that way. And then I remember seeing this couple, they were our friends and she was rubbing his back and he leans over and he's like, no, why can't you do that? And I was like, oh my God, like gaslighting. Okay. So I remembered like later, like the rest of the story is I did try to touch him and again, but he didn't like overtly do it. It was subtle. It was like, it was like, don't touch. It was like that. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like you get a lot of mixed messages. You don't know what to do. And, even there were a lot of punishments, even sexually, our intimate life, where there were crazy things happening there as well.
So I guess what I'm asking for is a sign. You don't have to go, too graphic here, but there's more intimacy in the beginning and then it drops off or it completely goes away. Like what would somebody look for?
I would say that I would not focus on whether you're sexual or not. I would focus on how do they handle closeness?
Okay.
Because a narcissist is DTF. Okay. But how do they handle non-sexual forms of intimacy? Do they like to be close? Like, how are they at maintaining eye contact? Like, and again, like you have to be careful because some narcissists are really good at this stuff and mirroring behavior. But like, do they actually want to cuddle with you or do they create space and separation? Do they like to hold your hand or do they like walk in front of you? Do they kiss you on the mouth or do they go for your forehead? Things like that.
Okay. Got it. Before the show today, you mentioned before you are more red-pilled on a few things.
Rolo's gonna
This
love
is
that,
for you.
huh?
This is for you, Rolo. What are the things that now? Let's point this out real quick. Our first episode to our second episode, I had mentioned to you. You had mentioned to you that you thought that almost all women who got into sex work were there because they were extorted, and you said you changed. You significantly changed.
I have,
your viewpoint on that. What, as far as you're more red pilled, what are some things that you change, and why have you changed your viewpoint on some of these things?
I think it's been a while since I've kind of touched base with some of the things that I've shifted with. So you'll have to bear with me as I try to like bring some of those up. But I have found that some women in sex work can be more exploitive than I initially, like, I do think that women are doing things to use men, for example, like the dinner dates, like just going because they're bored and they're actually entertaining. And so I give credibility to some of these points that you guys have. And I don't align with those things. I don't think that those things are good or positive. I also, my female audience is going to hate me for saying this, but it's true. I think women are so uninteresting. And I think that so many women think that they are just so interesting and they have absolutely nothing to say.
I think what you're saying is true, except me as a man on a date, my job is to make her interesting. But maybe that's also because I host a podcast. I have found some of the most vapid human beings ever, and it is an amazing skill set. Johnny Carson had it. Joe Rogan has it. There's certain people who can just take incredibly vapid human beings, and if you just remember, this person came from something and got over something, right? Came from somewhere and got over something. I think you can make them interesting. But if you can't make them interesting, and it's not your job to, by the way, if you can't make them interesting, I totally agree with you. I do know some men that are uninteresting, but you're right. I have met some women who are just incredibly beautiful. And I'm like, what do you do? And it's like, stay at home all day. Don't do it. I have it's kind of a weird thing. I share my location with all my friends. I probably share my location with you, all my friends. And I'm easy person to assassinate. And a lot of my friends, probably more than 200 of them, share their location with me. And so I have a lot of female friends that are models. And I'll look, I see their location just open up. I can see all of Clark County, and they don't move ever. They just stay at home. They never go anywhere. And you're right. So a lot of it is like, I do kind of see where you're coming with that.
When I say something like that, it feels shocking, but like, really think about it. Most people don't know how to hold a conversation.
Yes.
Now, it doesn't mean that there's no inherent value or worth. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people don't really have much to say or aren't really doing much with their lives. That sounds harsh, but I mean, when I ask, like when I was doing Pink Pill, I would have a lot of women that would reach out to me that would want to be on the show. And I was like, I can't have them on.
Bro, every week I have some yoga instructor or some and I'm not talking about Miguel, but like some clear crypto who's begging to come on the show. As some chiropractor, shout out to I have a chiropractor. They're great. But like this clearly is a chiropractor trying to sell crystals. Like every week. And I'm like, it would hurt you and me if you came on my show.
Look, I think everybody has a story.
Yes.
And I think everybody has inherent worth and value, but that doesn't, but a lot of people aren't connected to a lot of people don't have depth.
Okay, yes.
A lot of people can be incredibly superficial and are just kind of blasé with life, and it's all about what they can get. Even people that have, been victimized by other people and have trauma stories, their message is never about helping other people. It's always about what they went through. And I don't think that I hate that they've gone.
Oh, that's interesting. Now I see where you're coming from.
So it's okay. So this is kind of like what I'm coming up against. It's like, if I have somebody that reaches out to me, it's like, well, what's your message? Well, they don't really have one. They just want to tell you what's going on, or they want to attach themselves to an authority figure and say, yeah, your ex is a narcissist. And those things you have to be really kind of careful about when you are an authority and you do have that kind of power. But I would find myself asking that. I remember there were these there was one woman that wanted to come on, and I was open to it, but I asked some basic screening questions. And I was like, well, what would be your message? What would you want to kind of like, what would be the kind of overall point that you'd want to share? And she's like, well, to love yourself. And I remember walking away from that being like, well, don't we all know that? Like, don't we all kind of know that? It's not really about that. It's about airtime.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. I just want us to all know that we're hairless murder apes. That's what I want to know. That's my message to all of you. You're basically hairless murder apes. So is there anything else? You've seen me before. We talk about the concept of a man over 6 feet tall. That's like 17% of the population. A man who makes $100,000 a year. That's 14% of the population. So it's 2.3% of men who are 6 feet tall and make $100,000 a year. I express that to women frequently. The looks of disbelief and gasping whenever, and then we include not obese. Now we're getting to like less than 1% of the population. I have women on here frequently. We'll have these conversations, and then their preferences are all. And then you see Tinder now has a preference for height. You can actually,
I don't know. I'm not on Tinder.
yeah, right. You can actually select out men who are below a certain height. You don't have to see their profiles anymore. Let's not use the word female delusion, because I think that the people who say that are saying that because they're trying to use it as a pejorative, as an insult. But do you see how there is a situation? I hear women say there are no good men, and yet I know hundreds of very good men that those women aren't interested in. Do you see a disparity between when you were saying before about being more red-pilled, where women are genuinely being exposed to images of men that are unrealistic for them to get to commit, and then start only dating men who fit that criteria?
Look, this is such a hard question for me to answer, because yes, I do agree with you, but my advice to them would actually probably would not be something that Red Pill would support. So this is kind of where I stand with something like this. The solution here is not that they entertain somebody that they're not attracted to. That's not the solution.
Right.
Like, you're off to a bad start. So a lot of times when I hear this Red Pill content about possibly being more open to dating people that are shorter in height or whatever, if that's not really what they're vibing with, that's bad advice. Because if you have to start a relationship basically out of forcing attraction or whatever, that's going to affect the female negatively. That will affect the man negatively, and whatever. Now, let me add in a caveat. A woman might have preferences like wanting a tall guy. What I would encourage women to do is to be open to variations outside of that. You can have your preference, but let's say you meet somebody that's like 5'6", 5'7". That woman can still be attracted to that guy, even if he's outside of her range. But so many women are locked in on specifics that they might miss their actual attraction to that. Now, if that attraction does not exist, don't entertain it.
Agreed. There's another, this sort of was like a compromise here. And there was a researcher named Lucy Hill back in 2015. She does a study where she looks at hundreds of couples, and she has the people who work with her, the other people at the university, they rate the physical attractiveness of both members of the couple from +3 to -3. And then they ask them 3 questions. When did you meet? How long from, when did you start dating? And then they also ask, were you friends in between the time you met and when you started dating? And what they found is the correlation of physical attractiveness, meaning that the guy who's a 10 or the girl who's a 10 would date the guy who's a 10 if they started dating in a short amount of time. So physical attractiveness meant more. The correlation was about 0.72 if it was within a month. When they got to 3 or 4 months, the correlation went down to like 0.2. Mm-hmm. When they got to 9 months, Jamie, the correlation was 0.
I can see that, because look, your value changes. Like it will change, but like all relationships require attraction.
Agreed. But what I'm saying is the guy who's a 5 was dating the girl who's a 10 when they had known each other for 9 months, and those other attributes of attraction were able to manifest, which they can't on Tinder or in a bar or nightclub.
Mm-hmm. True.
So
that's very true.
Yeah. So unfamiliar, what we call unfamiliar environment and a familiar environment. In an unfamiliar environment, the better looking guy with more attributes of attraction that you can see overtly does better in that situation. In the familiar environment, like people, let's say you've been going to AA with somebody sitting next to this guy for like 6 months, and you get to know him or whatever, and you guys go have coffee and you find out, wow, this is a amazing person, but he's not as tall as you would have initially thought. What I found is that in the familiar environment, and there's several studies that show this, in the familiar environment, women would end up dating a guy that's not as physically attractive as they would have initially thought. So that's what I kind of see as the compromise. Again, I totally agree with you. I would think it's unfair if I was trying to ask myself to date someone I wasn't physically attracted to. I understand that. But I've also found myself to be more attracted to women in some cases when I find, oh, this woman has a temperament that I think I would really get along with. There was one girl, I'm friends with her right now, and she's like, she wants to hang out, just as friends, whatever. But I know if we started hanging out, I know we'd start dating. I just know it. And she has a podcast, and we have so many things in common and when I first met her, I was like, man, she's really pretty. And when I got to know her more, I was like, yo, this is dangerous. I know I would probably be in a relationship with this girl if I met her. And so a familiar environment, I think a lot of men would be able to kind of bridge this gap. The problem is the familiar environment is becoming less and less common because there's tons of data on this. Women in general are going out less. They are going out less. Women in general are getting more attention and validation through the internet. And because of that, 5 nightclubs per week are closing down in London. In Los Angeles, the nightlife scene is almost all but completely destroyed. If you go out in places in Miami, it's like they only try to let girls in. It's like $100,000 minimums on tables. Like, it's become extremely difficult to get women to even come out into social events in general. And the more attractive ones, even more difficult than that. And so because of that, the familiar environment is becoming harder and harder for men to achieve. Does that make sense?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I don't disagree with that. I think that, like, it's all about the relationship, right? And the relationship kind of opens up different levels of attraction, and that can be really marginalized when you're on like dating apps like Tinder.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how I explain, like, some of the girls I've gone out with, I don't understand why they'd even look at me twice, but it's because of that. It generally is because of the familiar, unfamiliar environment. You have the ability to show off different things. The way we say it in my program is, in the unfamiliar environment, Chad Thundercock is always going to win. What's really funny is Thunder from Down Under has a guy named Chad.
I know Chad.
We all know Chad. So Chad has taken that clip several times.
I'm gonna have to send this to Chad.
No, Chad knows. He hit me up the other day. He goes, "Hey man, I was kind of reacting. What do you think?"
No, I know. I saw it. I commented under it. I had to.
They love Chad. He's great. I'm not talking about Chad specifically, but everyone, when they heard that, I had Masha hit me up one time. She's like, "I can't believe you said that." I was like, I'm not talking about your Chad. I'm talking about anyway. It was pretty funny. It was Rich Cooper actually came up with that term.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Now, here's another thing I want to talk about. I had Aran Taraban on here, Psych Hacks, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the concepts we discussed was, it does seem like there are some very powerful men right now who don't have boundaries when it comes to their relationship. Biggest one, most recent, I think, would be Will Smith. You could also, I personally think Jeff Bezos has gotten himself into a boatload of, okay, so you understand what I'm talking about. And then the other one is Travis Hunter. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't know who Travis Hunter is.
He's a second pick in the NFL draft. His girlfriend was going to he was taking his girlfriend to parties when he's younger than her. And she was like, there's videos of her grinding on other dudes. She has a on her wedding ring. She has a $sign tattooed on here.
Oh, wow.
She had an OnlyFans he didn't know about. Like,
I think I heard about this.
Yes. And everyone in the world was like,
was she a former like escort or something?
No. I don't know if she's, okay. I don't know about that, but like, she clearly, she's on they would go on lives and she'd be like, yeah, you weren't really my type, like very clearly showing like very passive interest. Everyone's in the comments like, dude, break up with this girl, this is crazy, you're about to be a multimillionaire, get away. Like, basically she friend zoned this guy for years. Then all of a sudden, when he's a senior in high school and he's the #1 recruit in the nation, now she wants to date him all of a sudden, and they get married in the state of Tennessee not even a month ago with no prenup.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. And he's the second pick in the draft. And like, I don't know how much American football you watch, but
I don't watch any.
Okay.
Michael.
Let's
not talk sports.
Well, anyway, just to let you know, he plays both sides. He plays offense and defense. No one does that. He's a generational, once in a lifetime, like Michael Jordan, LeBron James level talent, but in football. And so we're seeing this more and more frequently with the Jeff Bezos situation. It's like how this dude could literally, maybe not anyone, but pretty much anyone. This guy could get anyone. And he's gotten this woman who's like been with several people, cheated on her husband with Jeff, dated several former professional athletes, has kids previously. And this is who he chose to date. And then the Will Smith is obviously the craziest one of all. Like, this is the guy from he killed the aliens in Independence Day. This was our hero. There was no one in the world for a while there that was cooler. I Am Legend is an unbelievable movie. Like, this guy was the coolest dude in the world, and he is just getting completely mollywopped by his like D-list actress wife. And I'm just curious if you've seen this. I've seen it more frequently. What do you think is the cause of this, where these men who could have anything they wanted just for some reason don't seem to have any boundaries?
Well, I have to make some speculation and some leaps because I don't know these men personally, but I would say it goes back to how they view themselves. Like, if I look at Jeff Bezos and I wanted to like typecast him, nerd,
Yeah.
didn't get the girls, didn't, unpopular, nerdy, not the most attractive man. And now he comes into all this money, power, and now he has access to things that he never had access for. There is probably a part of him that still sees and relates to himself as that nerd, questioning his worth, questioning his value. And he probably has some level of fear of abandonment or fear of keeping, like, he probably looks at his current partner thinking like, wow, I never thought I could get a girl like that.
Maybe he's also more susceptible to someone who would want to manipulate him.
Well, I think so, yeah. But the root of that is probably like, I don't feel good enough.
Yes, for sure.
Right.
But like, what I'm saying is, he didn't pick replacement level hot girl. He picked a woman who knows her way around men.
Well, look, the thing with probably somebody like her is she's probably a master manipulator. She is probably somebody that knows how to play to his ego, because a guy like that has an ego. She knows how to stroke it. She uses sex as a form of manipulation, which, you know, it's a point of leverage where where every man is vulnerable to that. And I think she knows what to say that's going to make him feel powerful and masculine and all those things that just make guys feel so good. Just like when girls get chocolates and flowers, you know, she knows how to do that. She's developed in that art, whereas some younger girls are not. They're not skilled in that department. Like, this kind of stuff is an art.
Yeah.
And she's probably really good at it.
And then the Will Smith one. This is like,
we've talked about them before. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. But this was like, I don't think ever Will Smith wasn't the cool kid. You know,
I kind of wonder like if she has like leverage on him.
Leverage on him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard people say that before.
Because like with all this P. Diddy that's going around, I'm like, I wonder if she's got something on him and that's why he does this.
That would be an interesting transition to my next person, which is Alex Fine. That is Cassie Ventura's husband. Cassie.
Oh, yes.
So how do you do? So she cheats on you with P. Diddy, clearly like to get a record deal, whatever. And then she recruits other people to participate in freak-offs, recruits other people to participate in prostitution. Very much she's complicit in this, but the excuse is she was only 21. Like 21 wasn't old enough for her to smoke or join the military. But
I don't know. I have to look. It can appear complicit, and I believe that there were moments where she was, but I don't think that was the case every single time, because
I think it was enough for her to be convicted of a felony if P. Diddy was.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I can't really speak to that, but I know that like when you are young, like she is, there is coercive control. And that is an important element here that has been downplayed, and you can't really do a whole lot with that criminally.
I don't know if it's been downplayed. She wasn't charged with any crime. She got immunity, so I don't think that was downplayed. I think that's her whole immunity.
Well, okay, I guess that's a fair point, but I think I do think that she was absolutely exploited. I do think that she was victimized. I also believe that there were times where she was a willing participant, but I think the foundation of that was to appease her abuser. In some ways, this can be forms of survival. And that's a really complex way of looking at it. And without speaking to her personally, it's hard for me to kind of say, but sometimes women will placate people that are in positions of power and influence for their own survival. Like, Jane Doe, right, was another one in this trial. And we all kind of know who Jane Doe is.
No, I know I know. Daphne Joy. Like I know she's been out here. She threw a party with shreds with me like 10 years ago.
So allegedly that's people are assuming that that's her.
Yeah.
Right. And, I don't think that she wanted to do these things. These aren't like sexual fantasies and desires that the girls are bringing to the table. They're doing things to appease him now for money, for love, for all of these things. But that's an element here where it doesn't really imply like, hey, I really want to do this. It's kind of, it can breach a level of survival, and I'm placating behavior because I needed, this guy pays for my rent. This guy has access to this. I kind of need this to survive. And that also influences their ability on how they're showing up to things and how they're choosing things. And that's an element to this that I think was left out. I don't think it's so simple to just say, hey, they just picked this. There are complex things going on. And it goes back to kind of my theory about choice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But I also think that you could say the same thing about a young child who becomes a crack dealer because he grows up around a bunch of crack dealers. He's still going to go to prison, though. That's the difference. I just really have an issue with the idea that this woman went out and recruited for this level of debauchery, and she is not implicated in this at all. I'm not saying she wasn't manipulated, but at the same time, I would not be shocked to find out that Puff Daddy was molested when he was a child, and that caused him to manifest this. And now we can take this level of abuse going back to Australopithecus if we want to.
I always understand why people do what they do.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not saying that warrants behavior. So you and I are agreeing with that. I just think that to simplify her role in this as like, hey, she chose this, I don't think that we can really I don't think we can slap that meaning
I'm not trying to simplify, but I am trying to say I believe she is partially culpable, but that wasn't my point. Okay. My point was her husband, who then ended up getting married to her years after being after finding out all this happened, cheated on, like I'm going to marry this woman. You openly recruited other people for this party and had multiple chances to leave. And last time I checked, Cassie got one album, and then that was the end of it. Like, he didn't even fulfill his part of the promise, and she ends up taking this person back. And that, to me, is a man with no boundaries.
Yes, I think it'll be kind of interesting to kind of watch. I think he probably has a lot of empathy for her. And I think that he probably saw some things that we're not privy to and has a lot of understanding for why she probably made some of those choices.
I have a different theory. Okay. My theory is he's trauma bonded to the fact that this girl cheated on him. Mm-hmm. And now this is his way of like getting closure by being with this woman who hurt him more than anyone in the world. I think that's more likely, to me, why you would marry someone like that than than the fact that he saw other things.
I mean, it's possible. Yeah. It is a possible explanation. Another possible explanation is that they were able to rebuild trust and they really do love each other. That's also a possible explanation.
The other one was, and we talked about this before, we talked about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. But the funny thing is that we don't talk about is, she's on the bed and he gets back with her.
Did he get back with her?
I mean, but like temporarily, like it was on and off again. And the other part that we got to remember is that like Elon Musk was her too. That is crazy to me. It's like when you think about rational human beings. I mean, before the ketamine and the Tusi that he's taking, not Tusi, he's not taking Tusi. The ketamine and the Adderall that he's like on now, he's admitted like he's probably taken a little bit too much of that shit. The fact that someone that rational also kind of gets...
Are you talking about Johnny Depp?
I'm talking about Johnny Depp and Elon Musk.
Okay.
Like, these are men who could have anyone they wanted. I'm not saying Amber Heard's not pretty, but like, holy bro. Like, what is going on here that these men would be willing to give up this much of their life?
Well, I don't think they're that rational. I think they're pretty chaotic.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're very rational at all. I think you see extremes in behavior. Look at his tweet war with Trump, number one. That is not a rational man. That's an emotional man, right? And like, look at Johnny Depp. Like, we have to, like, through my lens, addiction is at play as well. There's nothing rational about that.
So the reason why these men might not have boundaries, the overarching question might be because of weaknesses.
I think that there are some underlying issues. Like, look, any time we're entertaining poor behavior and going back to it, something is going on with us that is fundamentally broken. Okay. So, and we need to kind of, because look, healthy people don't entertain those things.
Yes.
Healthy people have boundaries, walk away, set boundaries, address behavior, and wait to see if it can be corrected. They don't, I mean, shitting in the bed is like a pretty big like red flag, I think, for a lot of people that they probably wouldn't call them back.
I bet the sex was
afterwards.
incredible.
Oh God,
Like, you understand
I
how
don't
good
know.
the sex has to be for her to shit in your bed?
Jesus, I don't know. Or, you know, like, but look, like you're probably dealing with some underlying mental health stuff. You really are. And like that influences perception. It influences tolerance. I mean, if he's self-medicating, again, like his threshold's going to be pretty high. You know, if he also has a huge trauma background, which I think he does, he might not recognize some of these things as super bad and dangerous as everybody else. Like, again, you know, using myself as an example, not recognizing things because your threshold is so high.
Have you read the study about people reporting having sex with those who have mental issues to be better sex? Have you?
I have heard that. I have even heard that from my clients that
I have heard that from my
they want
clients.
to F the crazy girl.
Yeah.
Like I've heard it. I wouldn't know. I don't know. But
I have a friend a long time ago told me this.
yeah.
He said, yes, very much, very, very much. It's
but
true.
You know what? But you know what's really interesting about that is that that works for a little bit, but they don't settle down with that.
Oh, of course. I agree.
don't.
I agree with that. My question is, why does that work so well?
Well, I don't know. I think men like challenge, and men like the unpredictability. Like men love unpredictability.
This is what I've heard. You go out with a girl who has BPD, and then the first interaction with her, everything is open, wild, chaotic, fun, everything you can possibly fantasize. And then the next day she hates you.
Well, look, that's trauma bonding.
Yeah.
So that's what that is. So like part of most likely what is occurring in these crazy relationships or whatever is there's actually a trauma bond because the highs are so high and the lows are so low. And what's actually being created is an addiction. Okay. So you keep just kind of taking the hit, like crashing, taking the hit, crashing. And you don't have love, you have a trauma bond, which is more, it's harder to break than a love bond. And that's why people keep revisiting these things.
This has been a big point of contention. I've heard several people discuss this. I've had Connor Beaton on. I've discussed this with Richard Reeves. I've discussed Professor Richard Reeves from the Brookings Institute. And that is the concept. In 2018, the American Psychological Association reported that traditional masculinity, and they include the term stoicism as being harmful. And Chris Williamson talks about this all the time. When men go to therapy, they're being treated like defective women. Therapy for men and therapy for women being different. Is this something that you've seen? Do you agree that it should be different for them?
No.
You think it should be the same therapy?
Look,
though I have a burden of performance.
Like, define what you mean by same therapy. Like, what does that mean?
So what I mean by that is, I think if I have a therapist that does not recognize my burden of performance all the time, then it's not help. This goes back to what I was talking about, the weight problem. This is just my opinion here. I think women align more with therapy and men need more performance coach. Because there's no situation where a man doesn't have a burden of performance. Most women, like you have a burden of performance. You have a job, you're a model, there's certain stuff, but you know some women that don't have a burden of performance. And my point is there's no such thing as a man who doesn't have one. And so because of that, I do think that, and the fact that we have 17 times as much testosterone as women, and the fact that I think men are happier solving problems.
I think if you have a good therapist, those things don't really matter because therapy is individualized. It's about being able to attune and meet the needs of whatever client you have. For example, like I'm going to give a different type of therapy to a 15-year-old than I am an adult male. Okay. So you need to be able to be adaptable as a therapist and be able to meet the needs of your client. It also depends on what the needs are of the client. I do think that there is value in recognizing gender differences and different burdens or challenges that the genders might have. Absolutely. But any good therapist can do that.
Okay. I guess my response to that was be talking to some of my male my male clients. and discussing it with them, and just consistently the idea that you're enough. And I'm like, bro, you're not enough. Like, someone is going to take your girl. Someone is going to take your clients. Someone, like, you as a man, I feel like we get away from this idea. And
I don't know. I guess it's like, I don't know about you, but I don't do that kind of therapy.
Okay.
Like, maybe I think I am very different. At least that's what my clients tell me.
Yeah.
I don't really like stuff like that. I think it's quite boring, and I think generic, and it's a one size fits all. Like, you're enough. Yeah, inherently we're all enough, right? But that doesn't mean
to my family I'm enough, but to the people I'm on the sales call with, I have to be more.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so having somebody that can focus and address those things, yeah, I do think that that's valuable in therapy and should be something that can be talked about.
Do you remember the show Billions? Do you watch the show Billions?
I don't know. I don't really watch TV, Michael.
They had two therapists that were on the staff at the hedge fund, but they were performance coaches.
Oh, okay.
They were like, shut the up. What would you say, Maureen? Have a big, here's a straw so you can suck it the up.
Oh, geez. Okay.
I don't know, man.
Should I try that?
Maybe, listen, maybe I'm just this arcane man who comes from an older belief system, but I truly do believe men making fun of each other, going out and playing football, talking, building a house, going out and playing paintball. I just see so many guys get over so many things doing that.
Look,
going out and dating again.
Michael, there's value in that,
yes,
but it doesn't fix the underlying issue. So again, like, those things can superficially treat a problem, but it's not going to fix your heartbreak. It won't. It won't. Those
you don't think going out and doing shit would fix your heartbreak?
What I'm saying, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's a trauma core wound that I think that people like. I can't just go shoot. Like, there is nobody on this planet that, like, let's look at SA, for example. Like, shooting a bunch of hoops isn't going to fix that for somebody. It's not.
Agreed. So I'm not talking about that. Of course, what you're saying is correct. And I also post-traumatic stress disorder. You were in a war. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to therapy for that.
Yeah.
But these are 10 out of 10 examples that you're talking about, like, where this is a severe neurological thing. I'm talking about the dude who just has melancholy because of his middle-age crisis, and he's overweight.
If we're talking more baseline stuff like that, see, my world, I am in that extreme end of things. And so that's kind of my wheelhouse that I'm pulling from. But if we're looking at more manageable, less severe symptoms, yes, they can help. Absolutely. But there is, I think we still can't, like, for men, ignore the emotional component that men do need to focus on as well, because men are emotional too.
Again, agreed. But, like, when I love someone, I solve problems for them. I don't need to talk it through for like 15.
But if you have a partner that doesn't read that language, you're going to need to learn how to adapt to how she receives that.
Well, I know, but most of my friends are female. I know when they're asking me a question, they don't want me to solve the problem. They want me to sit there and listen.
Exactly.
But as a U.S. military officer, if I love you, I'm going to solve problems for you. I'm going to make your life easier. That's what I do. And a lot of people are like, well, you're not being emotional enough. No, that is how I'm emotional. That is how I express my emotions, by fixing your sales funnel. I do this by fixing whatever's wrong in your house, well,
Michael, I get it. And there's nothing wrong about doing that, but it won't meet your partner's needs.
Okay. Got it. Misconceptions that people have about therapy in general and you specifically.
Oh, well, one of the things I've gotten is I'm a narcissist.
Okay.
Right? And one of the things that I love to do is I'm like, why? Because I'm just curious, right?
Yeah.
Why am I an art? Because I know nobody knows what the F it is anymore.
Of course.
You know? So I'm like, okay, well, tell me why I'm a narcissist. And you know the only thing that they come up with?
What's up?
It's how I look.
Okay.
Like, you're gonna have to work a lot harder than that.
One of the funniest ones, if you look at this this speech that Jordan Peterson gives, he's like, people who are purveyors of social media, they're just like all narcissists. No. And I'm like, first off, Dr. Peterson,
look at him with his two colored suits and stuff like that.
Well, no. First off, Dr. Peterson, you're referring to your daughter. That's the first part. You might want to watch that out. Number two, you're referring to over 60% of the human population. So, like, that may be, this is what I see a lot of times with psychologists. Sadia Khan does this frequently. She makes this hyperbolic statement that it just isn't true.
No, she's not really a fan, to be honest.
Oh, really?
No.
I would love, so I like Sadia. Her and I've written before. She got offended by something I made about her. But you and Rolo talking about Sadia would be incredible. Rollo will not stop talking about how much he doesn't like Sadia. Oh my God, it would be crazy.
It seems very orchestrated to me and very like manufactured.
I think there's part of that, but I also think it's extremely cynical because she lives in Dubai. And I think we're losing because her expression about how men and women think very much feels like a highly transactional Dubai type relationship where there is no, like, again, Dubai is a beautiful place. They have indoor ski resorts. It's incredible there, but there's no middle class for women like there is in Las Vegas or Miami. Like, women kind of are there to, women are there, there's no University of Dubai Kappa sorority. There's no middle class like that for women like there is in other places. And so because of that, there's a much more transactional nature in the relationships there. And I think that has rubbed off on her a little bit. And that's why when I listen to some of her stuff, when she talks about all these women are doing this type of sex work, whatever, these hyperbolic things she says, I'm like, I hear the Dubai speaking. That's just me. Maybe I could be wrong about that. And people say that about me with the Las Vegas, but I'm like, no, bro, I get squares on my show constantly. Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with her content anymore. When she was coming out, she was popping up on my page all the time, and I just kind of muted it. Because I thought it was manufactured. I thought it was a very superficial way to view things. I think we're much more complex than that. And I just thought it was for clickbait. I didn't think it was like real stuff.
Yeah, superficial. I thought it more like cynical, but yeah, I totally understand. Yeah. But yeah, she would say stuff like, I don't want to get into a big debate about this, but she said any woman who would ever have a threesome with her man is only doing that because she doesn't really care about this guy, and she is also sleeping with someone else. And I'm like, I can name 10 couples that I know right now that have been married for 10 years that do this.
Well, I can kind of agree with her on that point, but like, I would still take a different angle on that. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think every time that happens, because most women aren't bisexual, I don't think every time that happens. She's saying every time that happens, and I'm like, that's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say every time, but I would kind of probably lean towards more of her point of view as look, if a girl, like, when a girl,
I agree most of the time that is the case. Yeah. I just don't. She said every time, and I'm like,
I don't think it's
all of Islam. All of Islam is wrong. Is that correct? And she's Pakistani. She's like her father had multiple wives. Sadia Khan's father had multiple wives, and she said this. And I'm just pointing out, all of the time, Sadia, of course, most of the time, most women are heterosexual. So most of the time, you're correct. But my point is not about the actual point about infidelity. My point is she used hyperbole in order to go viral.
Yeah. Yes.
You what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, and I agree with you on that. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, so going back to what we said before about the misconceptions. So misconceptions about therapy, and then misconceptions about you specifically.
Well, I think going back to misconceptions about me, basically people, I think one of the biggest criticisms that I've gotten is how I dress, and like people don't like how I dress when I'm talking intelligently, I guess. Somehow that's a problem for people, which is weird. Or that I'm a narcissist. And really the only kind of things that they point out is appearance based. So it's hard for me. I can't even thwart the argument because there's nothing there to thwart. It's just you dress this way, so you're a narcissist. Yeah. I'm like, well, no, that doesn't make somebody a narcissist. A misconception about therapy in general, that all we do is talk and it's just so easy. It's not.
Right.
Therapy is incredibly complicated, and everybody thinks that they're a therapist. It's kind of an insult to what I do in my profession when I hear people are like, oh, I'm an armchair therapist, or oh, I'm this, or oh, I'm that. I'm like, you have no idea the kind of stuff that I deal with on a daily basis. The things that I have to take into account when I work with somebody, how you diagnose, seeing things, understanding how not to become part of their manipulations in therapy. It's incredibly difficult. And believe me, it is an art and a skill set, and not everybody's good at it.
This kind of two-part question here. The most overrated self-care habit in wellness culture. So the thing you're hearing the most, and the second part, which relates to the first part, which is the way you see therapists become influencers.
Mm-hmm.
And the way therapy is branded, and now, like you mentioned before, now I'm an expert because I follow these therapists on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that? Some of the most overrated things that you've seen in that space.
I don't watch a lot of therapist stuff online because I think it's so cringe.
Okay.
I don't really know. Like, I literally block it when I see it because I'm like, this is so gross to me, and I refuse to do it. Like, I've had so many people like ask me to do content like that. The only kind of content I'll really push out is stuff like this, right? Because it's way more credible.
It's contextual because it's longer.
It is, but it's like, oh, 5 things to get over a breakup. I'm
There
like,
you go.
please. 5 ways to tell if somebody's a narcissist. And I'm like, oh my God, this is such a joke. How to tell if he's really into you.
Yeah.
I'm like, get out of here. Like, this is just, you guys are really trying to dumb down something that's quite complex. Also, the stuff that I actually hear them talk about, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. And it's so boring and it's so bland to me. And I don't find any value in it. Also, like this whole like positive vibes thing.
You have good energy. Did I tell you that, Jamie? You have good energy.
I do have good energy.
It's so crazy. It's like you go on a date with a girl and you say you have good energy. She's like, oh my God, thank you. You're like, they're gaslighting you and you're saying thank you for it.
I got to throw myself under the bus because I do say that.
Yeah.
But I do believe in energy and I do believe in vibes. But if I feel like it's overrated and like, oh, I can just this and I can just this, it's like, you probably can't.
Think about that. You talking about a woman who's not interesting on the date with the narcissist. What does a narcissist do? God, you have such a great vibe.
Yeah.
God, you have great, and keep talking. You have great energy, and it's just like they're thanking you for the gaslighting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the thing I think is most overrated. Blaming. So some phenomenon that happens: men don't call back, women ghost, men ghost, male delusion, female delusion, and the perpetrator online only blames one gender to get that gender, the other gender on their side. And this is Chris GQ Perry with his woman pandering, or this is hardcore red pill guy who just blames women for everything. That to me is the most overrated thing. There's no, going back to first principles again in evolution, there's no way anything is all one gender's fault or there wouldn't be a species. Does that make sense?
Sure.
There couldn't be a way for women to have complete and total sexual advantage over men, or else the gender would fall apart. There has to be, it's Matt Ridley's Red Queen. As men do more things to garner sexual access, women do more things to figure out whether or not those men are serious. Then men figure out ways to trick those women. Then women figure out ways to test those men. And it goes forever. It's an evolutionary nuclear arms race that goes on forever. So there can never be a situation if women have some level of whatever female delusion. It is in part because of what they look for in men. Like I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. Dr. Buss said this: Homo sapiens are the only species where the arena upon which women compete with other women is almost entirely determined by men, and the arena upon which men compete with other men is almost entirely determined by women. So it can't be one side's fault. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And that is the easiest way to grow on social media right now. In fact, I have a friend of mine. He was I'm not going to say his name because I won't call him out, but he was a pickup artist, and he gave a lot of red pill content online. He said he had lost 7 different accounts, more than 7, several accounts he said he'd lost. He said one day he started making content for women, like very, very much like gold digger women pandering content. He said he's never lost an account since, and he just crossed 700,000 followers on Instagram, and his TikTok is in the millions because of doing that. By doing that type of content, there's some intellectual, I don't know, gray area, or moral gray area, but it is a great way to grow by creating a space for victims online.
I understand. And I think it's been exploited, and I refuse to be part of that. It's so easy to pander, like you said, to one gender or another and grow. But I think if you have value, like, I think you've got to kind of trust in that, and again, trust the process, and the right audience will find you.
The women who do come to you and say there are no good men,
what about them?
What would your advice for them be? Or do you believe them that there are no good men?
No.
Or do you think that it is just the way they're looking?
I think that there are a lot of good men. out there. I think that they might not be interested in them, which could be fair. Like maybe they're not interested in some of the good men that they've run across, but I guarantee you that every woman has a good man in her life, for the most part. But every woman has also probably been exploited and by a guy, and she's probably basing her assumption off of that or just a lack of interest. And so it's really kind of helping her work through those things. Like, is it really that there's no good men, or is it just a guy that you're not interested in?
Yeah.
You know.
The way I would explain it is there's a group of men that a lot of women are interested in, then there's women, and then there's the rest of men who are interested in those women. And when women complain about men, they're almost entirely complaining about this group of men, not the mailman, the guy who gave them their Chick-fil-A. This is not
I
the
don't
group.
know if that's true, Michael, because I know a lot of, like, out here, there's a bit of a role reversal because a lot of women I know are taking care of their dudes out here.
Correct.
You know,
because
so,
women here make more money than the men.
exactly.
Right. But there's still, you're what I'm saying, transposing hyperergamy only on to money. And it's not that. If your boyfriend's taller than you, that's still a form of hypergamy.
I'm not only doing that. I'm just saying that it's one aspect of
For sure.
it, you know.
Hypergamy is not how much does he make. Hypergamy is
I know
all
what
of
it is.
all of the attributes he has in comparison to other men.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So in comparison to other men, this group of men up here at the top, maybe if you were to take 1 million Tinder profiles and then stratify them basically on how many right swipes they get, the guys that are in the top 10 or 5%, the women are generally complaining about those guys. Whenever I hear the complaints, I had one girl, I was on Saucecast, and she goes, these men in Miami, all they care about is their Bugattis and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, there's probably 11 Bugattis in all of Clark County. That's just who you're interested in. I have 4,000 clients who would be incredibly good to you, and you're not interested in them. That's more of what I'm talking about here.
I get that.
Yeah. What are some ways that women do unconsciously emasculate their partner?
Depends if they're like living together.
Yeah.
If they're living together, women can, trying to like think of a specific example where women kind of become the final decision makers.
Okay.
Is something that I know bothers a lot of men. When they're kind of saying, hey, we're going here. Hey, this is how we're raising the baby. Hey, you need to wear this tonight.
Yeah.
It's coming from a place of genuine care, but the man can start to feel like he loses power. A very obvious way. Well, you're asking for unobvious, right?
No, it doesn't matter. So unconscious.
Unconscious.
Yeah, meaning like she's not deliberately trying to emasculate him.
I'll tell you one big thing is a betrayal.
Of course.
And you know, that's like, it is really hard for men to bounce back after that and feel chosen by a woman after that's happened. That's devastating for a man's ego.
So in comparison to a woman, do you think it's more devastating?
Yes.
Is it partially because when, like, for instance, if a beautiful woman gets cheated on, there's still like a line of dudes that still want to go out with her?
I think that there are different degrees of damages.
Mm-hmm.
I think that women, like, I don't want to minimize what this does to women because it's very destructive to women as well. But I think that women are more capable, or I guess more resilient, in getting over sexual infidelity than men are, because men tend to view women as, men kind of idealize their female partners, whereas women don't really do that so much. And men will put women on a pedestal and they'll see them as like this beautiful, like, little angel. And then when she falls from grace, it's like, oh, they don't know what to do with her. They don't know what box to put her in. It's like, okay, she's bad, you know? And it's really hard for a man's psyche to recategorize her or ever see her again as that little delicate flower that she once was. That's what I've seen men struggle with, whereas women are more fluid with that.
Wow, that's pretty red-pilled. That's pretty red pill right there. What's an uncomfortable truth that you believe that society doesn't believe?
Something that I think is true. I don't know. I think a lot of people are walking around unaware. I think a lot of people think they're smarter than they are, or like than they actually are. I think a lot of people aren't fulfilling their purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of people are not in the driver's seat of their own life.
That is definitely true. Yeah. And my uncomfortable truth is you're all getting older and you're going to die.
Oh, lovely.
So you better do something
morbid.
You better do something right now. That's my uncomfortable truth that I think a lot of people have a hard time with. Jamie, where can people find you? And when are we going to do a Pink Pill podcast so I can come on with
Well,
Rollo?
I've got to pick my podcast back up again. I kind of took a break to...
oh, look, there's a studio here. Isn't that weird? There's just this studio. Look at the lighting and the trees. What an unbelievable place.
I guess I could pick it up back here, possibly. So I have finished my book. I am looking for an editor and a publisher. So if you know anybody, or if
I
you
know
guys
someone.
Know
His name is Rollo Tomasi, and I need you to contact him, and he will absolutely help you. Rollo, let me explain something to you, Jamie. Rollo loves you.
I don't have a problem with Rollo.
No,
I disagree with
I agree
content.
with you. Rollo loves you. You can ask him for whatever Rollo has no problem. The fact that you challenge him, there's this belief. So Rollo's red pill. I'm really not. There's this belief that like he doesn't want women to challenge. No, we have women challenge us all the time on the show. It's super fun. It is not an issue. Rollo loves you. You could absolutely ask him and he would help you publish a book.
Maybe I'll hit Rollo up. So I just finished writing a book, so I'm looking at getting that published. That has been my baby, so I took a backseat from Pink Pill, but hopefully maybe you'll see me here for season 2.
Okay.
And then you can find me on Instagram at Jamie Lynn, or Pink Pill the podcast. I don't know what my other Instagram is. I have no idea, Michael. I'm the worst at this, right?
That's incredible. Yeah. You see that? That's unbelievable. That's what we should all be. That's good. Spend too much time on social media. Be a social media producer. Don't be a social media consumer. There's another uncomfortable truth. Beautiful. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to doing more stuff. Jim, we should do some live streams. I think do Q&A live streams. I think that would be a great thing. I got to be honest with you guys. I was trying to the idea of getting the podcast going again after 8 months. It was actually frightening. I was like worried about rejection, and I don't know what these weird thoughts, imposter syndrome, like you said before. And my team told me, they're like, hey, listen, we really want you to get the podcast going again. So this is the 5th episode that I've done since coming back, and they're just coming out. I've had people reach out to me to do it. So I'm really happy that you guys like it so much. The other thing I'm really surprised by is how many people are watching this or listening to this on Spotify and Apple with no video. They're just like listening to it. So thank you guys. For you, you haven't heard from me in 8 months. So I really appreciate you guys checking us out. We have a lot more great guests coming up. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next week.